Asian Boss Girl is brought to you by Anchor, an easy way to make your podcast and get it out into the world. It's free, has creation tools that allow you to record and edit right from your phone or computer, and will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast on Anchor with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Here at ABG, Asian Boss Girl, we're big fans of music and audio content. Spotify is one of our favorite platforms. They have a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcast so you never miss an episode. If you're a premium user, you can download episodes to listen to offline. And you can easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram. Download the Spotify app, search for ABG, Asian Boss Girl, or browse podcasts in the Your Library tab. Make sure to follow us so you never miss an episode of Asian Boss Girl. Welcome to ABG, Asian Boss Girl, a podcast for the modern-day Asian American woman. My name is Helen.
I'm Janet.
And I'm Mel.
It has been an incredibly dynamic last couple of weeks for us here at ABG personally, but also for the world at large. So even though we are off season, we wanted to check in with you all and share a special episode to talk about how we are personally experiencing this worldwide COVID-19 incident, in hopes that it might help some of you out there feel more connected, prompt conversations with your personal circles, or even just offer a brief moment of reprieve from your new daily routine.
So today we are bringing you a special off-season episode of our experience so far with the virus known as COVID-19. COVID-19 or coronavirus is the name we'll be using throughout the episode interchangeably. COVID-19 stands for coronavirus and the 2019 year. And it is an infectious disease that causes respiratory illness like the flu, with symptoms such as cough, fever, and in more severe cases, difficulty breathing. And just for context, so you know when we've recorded this, as of this week, the third week of March, the U.S. had about 8,000 reported cases, with several cases unknown due to asymptomatic carriers and also due to the lack of testing kits available. Italy just surpassed China in the number of deaths, and globally, there have been about 10,000 deaths. The governor of LA, where we currently live, just put the city on lockdown, and only essential businesses like pharmacies, gas stations, grocery stores, banks, laundromats, restaurants for takeout will remain open. And you've heard of new popular terms like social distancing and flattening the curve, which means to not overwhelm healthcare systems with too many people infected over a short period of time, to allow our medical workers with limited capacity to take care of those infected. And for those of you who may be concerned, we are practicing social distancing and sitting in our own respective homes, which we have become increasingly thankful for.
Yes, and to start the story of ABG's experience, we want to set some context of how things were before the quick escalation of the COVID-19 quarantine period. For the last couple of months, we've experienced an increase in potential projects at ABG, which is super exciting. In fact, this week we hit 2 million downloads. Yes, that's 2 million times someone hit play on an episode. We also had a number of in-person events at colleges, companies, and festivals slated for this month and the next few months. But obviously, plans have now changed. You know, through the news and social media, we're seeing a lot of our friends who also run small businesses being heavily impacted by this. And one, they're shifting their focus in business model, or two, sadly, they're closing down their business, which has been really disheartening to hear and see. For us at ABG, we're learning to pivot and spend a lot more time personally building on foundations for more long-term goals.
So as of last weekend, mid-March, before the official stay-at-home order in California, we were up in San Francisco for a couple of pre-planned events. Various suggested precautions were already starting to take place, so we actually canceled one of our events and altered two of the others to follow the public health recommendations, such as reducing the number of attendees from 350 to a max of 150. So things escalated pretty gradually, and before we even went to San Francisco, kind of news of COVID in China was already developing. Ladies, how did you take the news initially? Like, when did you first hear about it, and how did you feel?
I feel like COVID, to be completely transparent, felt like a distant thing, you know, with it being in China and Italy. It felt very far away from the US and something that wouldn't affect me directly, but it's something I was also keeping my eyes on. As someone who works in digital media and entertainment, I was very curious to see how COVID would play a role in the Mulan premiere and screenings, because I know a lot of us were getting ready to purchase tickets to, you know, support the film. And I know how China plays a huge role in box office sales. And when we heard Mulan was postponed, I was like, oh shit, something's really happening in the world. It started affecting me directly when I would check ABG's Instagram and people started tagging us in these like really just shitty, like racially targeted videos of just like a bunch of people, whether it's in the US or around the world, of people being just extremely racist to like Asians and Asian Americans. I was like, wow, something's happening and it doesn't feel good.
What about you, Helen? Do you remember where you were when you first started hearing about it?
Yeah, well, I don't remember where I was, but I do remember I was probably at home. I don't know. I was on my phone somewhere getting the news like all of you. But I remember hearing news, obviously, about some virus in Wuhan, China. And the fact that they built a hospital in 10 days, I knew that it was incredibly serious over there. But and like Mel, like I did not think that it would ever reach us here in the US. But I didn't take any of it lightly, especially when my mom, I think, started sending over WeChat messages about being safe and all these messages that were just circulating amongst her friend group. I was like, I guess this is, a thing. And for some reason, I feel like my mom always finds information first before US media gets to me. But I think what's scary is that we were in SF when I think a lot of it just started building up. And a lot of our friends were texting us, making sure that we were okay. And everyone's eyes were just sort of glued onto their phones. And I think at that time, I kind of trusted the government that they knew what they were doing, which in retrospect, I think we know now that our president hid his knowledge of the pandemic and sort of played down the situation. And I think it's scary how much faith we put into our government when we feel helpless. Because I definitely felt a little bit just like, I don't know what's going on. And I kind of just have to rely on the government to tell me what to do, right? But I think it also, like, on a grander scale, makes me think about the privilege that we do have of, like, not feeling so helpless. It makes me think about the people who do feel helpless on a daily basis and don't feel like they can sort of rely on our government. So all in all, it's kind of a long answer to just, like, how I found out about this. But I'm kind of going into, like, how I'm feeling about this. But I think if anything, it's sort of made me more firm on my stance of putting, the right people in power and just being more empathetic towards people in society. Because this shit is scary. It is very scary what's going on. How about you, Janet? How did you find out about it? And when did you realize the gravity of the situation?
So I think like much of the country and much of like you ladies have expressed, it wasn't that we weren't taking it seriously, but I definitely felt like it was more distant. I took it a little bit more lightly in the fact that I thought it would not get to the scale it has. And I think I was also a little bit slower to come to some of these than both of you because I'm not necessarily as plugged into social media, and I'm not on Twitter, and so I get my information probably a little bit more delayed. And because I'm like maybe not as like supremely active on social media, a lot of these things like the tagging and some of the viral videos, like I kind of have a tendency just to close off to it, and I tend to be skeptical and kind of think that things are being sensationalized. This definitely, I had many reality checks, which I'll talk about later, but it's more of a general explanation as to why I think for me it was a very, very slow build up. And similar to Helen, my mom and my dad watched the Chinese news like almost every day in addition to the US news. So they often do find out about things before the US talks about it. And when it started developing, my mom was like starting to not like freak out, but both her and my sister tend to be kind of more reactive and very overly cautious people when it comes to some of this stuff. Yeah. And I think because of that, I developed a habit of like, I generally, if people around me are starting to get stressed out or frustrated or anxious, my natural response is to like find logical explanations and to like be balanced, to like to balance out the panic with calmness. And so it took, I think, and even like 2 weeks ago, I think I was sharing with you ladies that my mom sent me home with the coronavirus kit, and it wasn't playing it lightly, but more like she does this all the time with like earthquake kits, like I know she was just being, or I took it as she's being extra cautious. Yeah. And now I realize like, yeah, like I'm using some of the items in that kit, and that was like a very heavy situation, and that was only like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah. And like Helen was saying, we were in San Francisco when it started to really heavily escalate. And even then, I was still feeling like, oh, it'll be okay. Like kind of, trusting the government. And I think this is partially because, I have the luxury of my day-to-day life not being affected so early on. I have friends with kids who, when they started closing down schools and daycare centers, I was in like text threads with moms who were like, like what are we doing, or how are you guys handling this? And my sister works for the county, so she was like getting like conflicting information at work. So for me, it was just like I didn't feel it on a day-to-day as quickly, and it definitely has snowballed, which I guess we can talk about kind of when did you realize the gravity of the situation. But I'll turn it back to you guys first. Like, yeah, what was like a defining moment when you realized, oh shit, this is like heavy and serious?
Yeah, just I guess to answer Janet's question. So like you guys mentioned, we were in the Bay Area, and I felt I was feeling the weight and impact of the coronavirus when all the events that we're up for started getting canceled. And so the reason why I actually was up in the Bay Area wasn't just for the events. I was up because it was my dad's 60th birthday that weekend, and I was going to be with family. I think my mom tends to have a more, I don't want to say carefree attitude compared to your mom's, but like after going through my grandma's death when she had cancer, my mom realized that, you know, sometimes when things happen and when people go, and that's not, I don't think that's like her like like what is that French word when like you kind of are just carefree. She's more like
laissez-faire.
Yeah, she's kind of like sort of like that, but she's also being careful with how she, like, you know, she can sanitize and all that stuff. But since my mom was more carefree, I was like, oh, maybe it's not as bad as I think it is. But it wasn't until my mom was planning a dinner was for my dad's birthday and invited my uncle and their family over, and he was like, no, I think we should social distance. And you also know already, like, family gatherings and dinner for a birthday is like a huge thing in an Asian household. So the fact that my uncle said no because he wanted a social distance, my mom was like, oh, and I was kind of like, oh, something's happening. At that time, my best friends actually didn't even want to hang out with me. And these are people I see when I go back to the Bay Area because I don't see them a lot. And they're like, Mel, I think it's good that we don't see each other even though I want to. And I was kind of like, oh, like, okay, like I didn't think it was that big of a deal until multiple people are telling me I don't think it's a good idea. And also at the time, like the number of tags we're getting on ABG for these racially and xenophobic type of videos have increased. And I would watch everything and be like, oh my God, shit's happening to our community. And it's literally it's like it's sinking in that it's getting worse. I think with that, when I was in Big Sur with my family, I noticed that I would hand sanitize more. And when we go out to eat, I would be so aware when my mom would speak Mandarin because I'm just like, please don't speak Chinese right now because I am so afraid that someone's going to come up to us and say something. And you guys know me, I'm not a confrontational person. So I was like hyper aware when we went to In-N-Out. I feel like people were looking at me and I was just so afraid because that area too isn't extremely diverse. There weren't a lot of Asians there. So I was just like hyper aware of us speaking Chinese and I was like getting paranoid. I guess also to give you guys context for where I'm at today, after coming back from Big Sur and everyone saying, let's not hang out, I actually chose to drive to SF to see my college friends and was going to spend the night. Because I think at that time, it's still like you could still be around, I think, less than 10 people. And my college friend, Sally, her house only has like 5 people. So I think it was under that rule. And when I got to SF and parked my car, I checked my phone. And I literally got a text from mom saying, you need to come home because SF just is implementing a lockdown at midnight. I was like, oh shit, because like LA hasn't even implemented a lockdown, and SF was, I think, one of the first cities in California to implement this. At that time, I started reading more on the news, and after talking to my friends, I realized, you know what, I'm going to actually stay in SF and be part of the lockdown. So I think everything just kind of hit me at once, being in the Bay Area, like dealing with my dad's birthday and like watching all these videos and people texting me about like, hey, I don't think we should hang out, and just be careful, that I was like taking this much more seriously than I was originally. Janet, how about you?
So to be completely transparent, I feel like I felt a huge shift in the gravity of the situation only in the last like 24 hours. So this is like day 6 of LA where, you know, and this is just last night is when the governor of California announced the stay at home like order statewide. So I feel like it's a little bit lighter and I could talk about it now. But yesterday I had 3 different phone calls that really, really shifted my perspective. One is a really close friend of mine we're in different states right now, and we've been G-chatting, and I know that she's been kind of not feeling well the last like week and a half or so, but I didn't really want to ask anything specifically. She's now healing and she's a lot better. Her like sickness never got to a point where she needed to go to the doctor, but she thinks that she probably was like struggling with some strain of the virus. And she's young and she's healthy and she's fine now. And she pretty much was like self-quarantining. But I think that was a big reality check for me, that there are a lot of people that we know personally who are probably going to contract this or, you know, show symptoms. And I had a moment where I was like, okay, because of all this elevation of social anxiety, I initially reacted with like fear and like being scared.
Yeah.
And she was just so calm about it. And she, you know, had studied up on the facts and like all of that. That was really intense for me. The second phone call I had was with my sister, who I mentioned before. She's an eligibility technician for the social services agency in Orange County. And basically her job entails processing all of the constant information that's coming from the government because it's directly related to like Medi-Cal and Medicare. And she's also, up until like the beginning of this week, still had to interact with clients. And a lot of her clients are like homeless people, sometimes not mentally well. Someone actually came into the office last week claiming that they were, struggling with the virus. And she's been inundated with all this information on like, a minute by minute basis. So I think having a phone conversation with her, she was just so hyper aware and anxious, but also like coming from an informed place. Because of the information she had very specific concerns with like my parents and with the older like relatives that we have. And it was a big reality check for me because we were starting to have very personal conversations about how we should approach this with our parents. Because we both, she's like 10 minutes away from them, and I, am in LA about an hour out. And we typically visit like on a weekly basis, and that doesn't, like general best practices that everyone's saying now, you have to social distance, and especially the elderly over 65 are most high risk. But then there's this like cultural aspect that we have of when things like this happen as a family, you band together. So even when I came back from San Francisco, my parents were like kind of asking me like, hey, we're healthy, we're fine, I'm sure you're okay too, just come home and we'll deal with this together. And I had to kind of make that decision of like, okay, I'm reading things that are saying that's probably not a good idea. But then also I know that my dad is very well informed and he's very reasonable, but he's probably also kind of coming from an emotional place of just rather me coming home. And so my sister and I were like kind of having this debate. Like, she's like, I don't know, I want to like help like visit them, but then maybe I shouldn't. Like, I'm going to go pick up stuff for them. Should I just like leave it at the door and not like interact with them? So yeah, those two phone calls were really heavy for me, and I will get into the third one later.
Can I just say that Janet and I live on the same block, and Janet was so cute. She like came over to my condo to drop off the mics, and she literally put it on the floor and just walked away. And I was like, Janet!
Well, dude, it was because like I go to the lobby and they have like your doorman is wearing gloves. He's behind the desk. He's sandwiched between two signs that say, please stay 6 feet away.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's another sign at the door that says food delivery services only. Like, meet here. And I was talking to him, and he's like, oh, and I was almost like, shit, do I have to pretend I'm like delivering like Uber Eats to get in? Like, I don't know. And then when I was like, oh, could I just leave this for her? And then he's like, no, you can't just like leave things here. And I was like, but it's just a microphone.
No, I think it's very smart. Like we should definitely be keeping our distance. I just thought it was really cute how you did it. You just like put it on the ground like, I'm sorry, I can't give this to you. And then she just like backed away. But yes,
but in Janet's defense, the bag she dropped it off, so I saw Helen's story. It looks like a takeout bag.
It does.
Yeah, actually, I felt good with, and I actually had the thought when I was finding a bag for this, because I was going to reach for a plastic bag, but then I was like, I think it lives on plastic surfaces longer, even though the whole mic itself is a lot of plastic, so I don't know how, whatever that is. But I just want to check in, like, how are you guys feeling overall about this?
I mean, I think I'm feeling pretty anxious. I had some major life events that happened this past week that didn't really get like the celebratory feel maybe it deserved. So I think there is, for me, just a lot of minimizing my own life experiences that I know we're all sort of forced to do at this time. But I think it makes me feel like really small and kind of helpless and kind of like, what is the purpose in life? Like, we're just bags of fluid that are highly susceptible to viruses, and we're just like a speck of dust in this galaxy anyway. Super freaking morbid. But like, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are a lot of people that are going through really difficult times of just trying to get through this, and I'm definitely one of those people feeling that.
I know this week was so special for you, and I wish we could celebrate with you like in person and also in better circumstances, and we will when we can resume seeing each other face to face. So do not worry, we will have a belated celebration, but we're incredibly happy for you and incredibly proud of you.
Yeah,
thank you. But other than that, I think I'm also just feeling very anxious for others because like you ladies have been mentioning, this whole racism thing that's been going on. I do feel that even after COVID-19 dies down, the level of racism that we're going to feel is going to last us for a while. And Trump is pissing me off because he constantly calls it the Chinese virus or even the Kung flu, despite that not being its official name. And even when reporters are telling him that his rhetoric is harmful to the Asian community, not just the Chinese community, he'll say things like, I think they probably would agree with it 100%. Like, no, we do not. What I'm feeling is that I'm fearful for my grandparents, my aunt, my mom, my dad walking down the street to pick up their essentials. And I want to protect them, but I can't. And it's this like nasty language that is only going to open the doors for continued hate against Asians. This past week, I had to go into an office building to pick up something. I had someone from another office on the same floor slam the door in my face. And it was the middle of the day. There had been other people already walking in and out. It wasn't too heavy traffic, but there had been other people coming in and out. And I'm pretty sure that slam was targeted towards me. So it's a very scary time to live right now, if not for fear of contracting the virus, but I think even more so for me, just this feeling of like racism that's going to be running rampant.
How about you, Mel?
What Helen said about the racism is definitely something that feeds into my paranoia. Because I feel like sometimes, like I see my parents, there's a sense of like, they don't understand where this racism is coming from. It's like it's a sense of innocence they have.
Yeah.
You don't know how to tell them. Like when I was in Big Sur, I was like, Mom, you speak perfectly good English. We could probably avoid any kind of confrontation if you just chose to speak English, like you always usually do with me. So just like paranoia is definitely building in me. But I actually broke down my feelings into like 3 different buckets. The first one was guilt, and this is kind of off topic, but I feel guilty towards my parents actually, because even though I'm afraid for them and I want to protect them, I was in SF for almost like 4 or 5 days with them, living with them at our house. When my mom messaged me when I arrived in SF to come home, my first thought was, I can't live another day in my house with my parents because I will literally go insane. And I don't know if other people feel this way, but one realization I'm starting to have these last years is that I can't stay at home for too long because it's starting to drive me crazy. And it's because I do love my family, and my mom is amazing, but my mom and I are way too similar. And she literally, like any Asian parent, she starts nagging me constantly when I'm with her, 24/7. Like, you should do this, you should eat that, like all this stuff just starts kind of like weighing on me. And for someone that's been living on their own for about 10 years and has grown their own customs and routine, it's really hard for me to have someone else tell me what to do. And so at the time when SF put in their lockdown, it was like, I think 4 to 5 days already that I've been with my family, my parents. And being in my own house, I was like, I can't stay here any longer because I know I'll become very toxic. And I don't want to be that person. So me choosing to stay in San Francisco, I felt like a lot of guilt towards my mom. And I felt like a shitty daughter. You know, it's like, she probably just like Janet, like what your parents said, like they want to protect you from everything. They want you to be home too. But for me, I'm like, I really can't be here around you because I literally will turn to someone that you don't want. And so for me, I was dealing with guilt initially. And the next feeling I got was paranoia and confusion. Paranoia because like, obviously with the whole racist, like the racist stuff going on. And, you know, I was talking to you ladies, obviously like everyone knows now I'm in San Francisco. I'm not in Los Angeles. Like I'm paranoid because I do want to go back to LA because that is where my home is, where I'm comfortable. But at the same time, I don't know the appropriate way to travel back, and I'm scared I'll affect someone or be infected by the coronavirus. And I'm also confused because, like, you know, you guys know me. I like to ask advice from like everyone, like from you guys, my friends, my family, and I'm getting thrown so many different opinions. I don't know which is the right way to go about it. And I am reading the news. I'm like trying to update myself on the travel and airport and just everything. I literally Google like car rentals to see how much that would cost to just drive down by myself and like return a car. And also thinking about like, should I just stay in San Francisco? And like just all these thoughts are going in my head. I just don't know what to do. And I'm paranoid of, I guess, the wrong answer. But at the same time, like in light of like all these like more negative feelings, I guess, I think overall, like I'm actually I feel fortunate. Like Helen mentioned, like I think we are lucky and privileged to not have to be on the front lines of things. We have resources compared to a lot of other people in different countries. And for me, like I'm actually on lockdown with 3 friends who actually are on the same schedule from working from home and around the same age. So like it has made the situation a little bit more livable for me. Like I have people to socialize with. So I do feel like it's really easy for me to feel paranoid, and I feel that almost every single day. And I'll message you guys being like, I don't know what to do. But I think having moments where I can have like my friends and laugh from time to time has alleviated the feeling of paranoia when it can.
One of the big differences within the 3 of our experiences is that you are like stuck in San Francisco, which is I'm very thankful that you have your friends and, you know, you're from the Bay Area. So it's not like you're in a foreign place that you travel to. But at the same time, your home is in LA, and that both of us were able to return back to somewhat of a familiar sanctuary type setting. And you're up there, and it's kind of this, I feel like that heightens the like uncertainty when things feel really indefinite. And I know you're also feeling like heavy amounts of like guilt and anxiousness about being present for ABG, because at first we were like, oh, we'll take this, if we're all like kind of, we initially thought quarantine was like we could just be together as like a team and 3 people and we would just work together, and then realizing now the severity of it where people are saying, no, you really should social distance as an individual. And you're like, well, do I need, okay, should I come back to LA? Like, I don't want to go to the airport, should I rent a car? Yeah, you know, I think your experience of this has been, I can see how it's a lot more of a roller coaster.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when I was weighing out the possibilities or the options, like, oh, should I go home now or what do I do? The first thing that popped into my head was you two, actually. And I was like, ABG literally is my priority right now. And of course it's my health, but like when I think of anything, like everything else aside, like you guys are my priority in terms of like, I don't want to infect you two or like just put you in like a, I don't know, I'm just being extra cautious. So like your opinion really matters to me. So when I was asking guys like, what should I do? Like, should I wait it out? Whatever. But you guys have been extremely understanding of everything. And like, you're like, no, you guys stay in SF. So like, I think through all this craziness, you guys have been very solid and consistent. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mel. No, I think it's important. Like you were saying, like ABG, sure, it's something that we want to build and grow, obviously, but health is absolutely the most important thing that we need to take care of. Because if you don't have that, then you can't build ABG, right?
Yeah.
So we for sure.
And that's what Helen said, and I really appreciate it. But so thanks.
For sure.
Janet, how about you? Like, how are you feeling about everything?
So Mel, I can definitely relate to your the thought of, you know, fuck, am I a bad daughter? Because that thought has definitely come into my mind multiple times this week. You know, like we were saying that we are hearing all on the news that you should be social distancing and especially to not be visiting the elders as much. And then I have my parents kind of calling me. And yeah, within Asian families culturally, it's very prevalent to have this value system of like prioritizing the family. And when things get hard or challenging, you band together, right? So it's almost as if like, hey, if you were sick, I want to be there to take care of you. I don't care. It's like, it's us against the world kind of feeling. And, you know, I think because of that, then I have this conflict of like, well, if I listen to them and what the right thing to do culturally is, I disobey what is I know kind of like health-wise the best thing to do. But if I do the thing that's like health-wise the best thing to do, then I conflict with like culturally or like what how they're feeling and reacting to the situation. So just not feeling like there's a right thing that I can do is really frustrating. Being of, you know, Chinese culture and Asian culture in general, kind of obedience to your parents is a very high value. It's something that just almost comes so naturally for me.
Yeah.
And so that's been, a lot of the back and forth of, you know, strange feelings. And to add to that also, it's interesting that when I spoke with my dad, like, I think when they say that the perspective that the elders people are more at risk, he has the opposite opinion where he thinks that, you know, this sounds a little morbid, but he's like, for older people, if we've lived our life or whatever. So, but it's for the younger people, if you become infected, even though people are recovering, they don't know the long-term effects of contracting something like this. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to spread, you know, because there's no research or anything, but that's a thought that some people might have had, right? And that's a thought that for him, he's automatically thinking of me and my sister. Like my mom and him, when they're hearing all these rules, they're thinking about, are you guys okay? What's happening with you? And then my sister and I are the reverse. We're constantly thinking about our parents and like, how are they keeping safe and all this stuff? So it's very hard to like interpret. I guess it's like the government can give you best practices and rules, but every person's going to interpret it differently. And especially when different cultures come into play, it gets super confusing.
Well, it sounds like you're all just very selfless human beings. Like you just want to make sure that, you know, the younger generation and the older generation are doing well. Yeah. Although there's a part of me that feels like maybe the government shouldn't have said that younger people are not susceptible to contracting the virus, because freaking Florida spring break, like all of this stuff just does not make any sense to me. It's crazy. But in any case, I think, what you're saying, Janet, our family cares about us very deeply. And that's something that we are now seeing also as like, I'm glad I have that support system too.
Yeah.
Asian Boss Girl is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is offering classes, content, and community workshops so we can all feel a little more connected to ourselves and each other. Take this time to explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity with classes from Skillshare. During this time of social distancing and staying at home, what is equally important is building in routines, particularly for wellness and health.
With Skillshare, you can look up a wide variety of classes like creating a perfect morning routine or meditating for beginners. Or spend your time learning new skills with classes like Drawing for Personal Growth, 5 Exercises for Self-Discovery, Visual Journaling, Drawing Your Feelings, and Style Your Space, Creative Tips and Techniques for Interior Design. Explore your creativity at Skillshare.com/ABG and get 2 free months of premium membership. That's right, Skillshare is offering Asian Boss Girl listeners 2 free months of unlimited access to thousands of classes. Head to Skillshare.com/ABG.
All right, so during the time of the crisis, who do you guys usually turn to, and what was that interaction like?
Well, I've been really lucky to have Philip at home, my fiance. I think we're both so busy in our day-to-day that we actually don't have a lot of time to just be together. So it's nice for us to finally find some time to just be at home doing home workouts and watching BoJack Horseman. Did you guys watch that show? It is so good. It is so dark, but so good.
I still have to check it out. Yeah. I heard good things about it from you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been good that we've had like time at home. But the people I also turn to, my family is in Boston, or my nuclear family, my mom, my sister, my dad. But my family locally here in LA, my mom's side of the family. So her parents and her sisters and my cousins. And I guess I had one like cute moment where I brought my aunt and grandparents food, and my aunt texted me because my grandpa's like really old. He's almost 90 years old, and he's susceptible to pneumonia.
Oh, wow.
So she texted me and she was like, if you come, don't go to visit grandpa because I have to very, very protect of him. Do not let anyone in and do not let him out. Please understand.
Aww.
I will tell him no. I'm reading the message. Tell him no, that you're bringing things and he should happen. You think of him. He should be happy that you're thinking of him.
That's cute.
And it's tough because she's taking care of her husband and 2 kids and my grandparents, which I think just like as a PSA to people out there too, I think we need to stop shaming people who might actually need a lot of materials at grocery stores because they have to take care of a big family. Obviously, don't hoard. Hoarding mentality is terrible. But also don't be so negative towards people because you don't know their situations. They might be different from, your own.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point.
The moment of like me trading things with her, like I brought her 5 rolls of toilet paper, which is all I could get. And then I picked up some things from the grocery store, like pears and butter cookies and some vegetables. And she gave me soup and liang cha, which is like cooling tea when you eat hay, which is like when you have a lot of heat in your body. So she made some at home, and she got me some chocolate covered almonds and Clorox wipes, which we don't have any of at home. So it was kind of just a nice moment of showing that we cared for each other and that we were thinking of each other. And we also just kind of like dropped it on the ground and like walked away. Did the thing where you did to me
Social
earlier
distancing.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super sweet. But yeah, actually, you made a really good point about the shaming of people getting lots of supplies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't know any person's situation, so definitely just be kind to each other.
How about you, ladies? Who do you turn to in moments of crisis like this?
I think moments like this, and I think choosing to stay in San Francisco, like my friends here have been so welcoming of me. Like, I definitely turn to my friends. I think the fact that we're all similar in age and similar in schedules, that it feels like very comforting to have someone that understands my thought process and my schedule. And it's just so cute because literally they have an empty room right now because I think someone's going to move in. I don't know when. They literally built a room for me in their house. So I have a room now in this San Francisco house, and they like brought like it was so funny. Like, I think one afternoon I was like, we have a blow up bed. They brought in a blow up bed, and all of a sudden like all 3 of them came following me and like brought in like a bookshelf, a plant, and like Sally, my roommate from college, brought in her record player. And I was like, oh my God, they literally built a room, and it was just like super cute, and it was really nice.
That is really, really sweet.
It's super cute. Yeah.
I was laughing because like, and they're also entertaining me a lot because one of the girls, Jen, she has a background in event planning. So I looked over at her. We're all doing our work. So she's an event planner at Twitch. And I looked over at her, and she literally, like, I don't know if you guys follow Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye, but he's also, I think, locked in lockdown. He, like, made this, like, cardboard television and started this television show with his kitty cats. So I looked over at Jen, and she was like, look, I made a TV. And I was like, are you effing kidding me? So, like, they're definitely entertaining me as I'm here. So they have been really great. And honestly, like, even you two, like, having our daily conversations in the morning, it's like a good reset or like a good start to my day. It's nice to have something to start your day off with every day. It's like being a type A person, it's something to look forward to, and you know that you can control this. And that sounds really weird, but I'm also very appreciative of our friendship too.
No, that's true. I think, Mel, for your personality type, because I think you like social interaction and you do like structure. Yeah. Those are two things that are probably providing you a lot of groundedness in this like super uncertain time.
Yeah, because I think sometimes I wonder if I were like isolated, because even though I am becoming more introverted, I'm still an extrovert at heart. And so if I was alone or isolated, I think I'll be sad.
Yeah.
But having people who are like really just silly around me, it's been really fun. How about you, Janet?
I'm glad we are not in different places, because I live by myself and I'm kind of like isolated. But to me, I haven't felt like I've done a lot of like solo trips, and I've spent weeks at a time. Maybe not weeks at a time, but without any social interaction. But I'm used to living by myself, as long as I think to having the video chats and phone calls like is critical. But otherwise, like for this setup, I'm okay. But if we were to be switched places, I think I would actually start getting really antsy if I had to be in the same home with like 3 people for a really long time.
Same. Actually, same. Yeah.
I'm like, I think I'd rather be alone.
I'm over the roommate period of my life. Actually, Janet, how have you been? Because you live on the same block as me, but obviously we haven't been seeing each other until today. But I'm always like, Philip, should we invite Janet over for like dinner or something, or should we like bring her like matcha or food? I don't know if you have enough food.
It's funny, and Janet's gonna be like, get away, like stay away from me.
No, that's super sweet. To be honest, like today and yesterday are a lot better. I spent the first like 3 days when we came back from SF, like Sunday through Tuesday, in like a haze. I think I kind of needed to go through that period, and I can talk about kind of later some of the positives from this experience of like more self-awareness. But generally, yes, I appreciate the thinking, yeah, I think that each of our living situations kind of we are lucky that it kind of accommodates our personality types.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, because sometimes I look at Philip and I'll be like, thank you for being here. Or else I just feel like I would go a little crazy. But let's go back real quick to the question that both Mel and I had answered to about like who do you turn to in these moments of crisis? I mean, you're alone at your home, but you mentioned like the video chatting and messaging and all that.
Yeah. So yesterday I talked about having 3 critical phone calls that really shifted my perspective. I talked about the first 2 with my friend and my sister that really just, I think for me, were hitting home the levity of the situation. The 3rd phone call was with my dad. He's someone whose judgment I've come to realize that I really rely on. And I think a lot of that is because we're very similar in how we tend to process information. We're both people that kind of like in urgent situations, we react very pragmatically. We focus on what needs to be done, what problem needs to be solved. And we don't really process our emotions. We kind of just like run on adrenaline or like focus on actions. And then only after a period of time do we understand kind of what we're feeling. And it's not to say that we're not feeling the whole time, but we just don't process it until later. And so up until yesterday, all of my phone conversations with my dad were very much like him saying, hey, things are serious, but there's no need to panic. Everything's still fine. He felt in control. Yesterday was the first time where the first thing that he said when he picked up the phone was, oh, we really messed up and I feel like we really underestimated. And as a family, we should have gotten like face masks or we should have, and he just kind of said it not for me and mommy, but for you and Patricia, you guys are like out and you're interacting with people. And he had this very like apologetic tone with which he said that. That was almost like saying like, like I'm failing at my job as the head caretaker of the family. And I think that speaks to kind of this like cultural value of like familial piety where, in urgent situations like this, like that we have that the heads of the households, even though like in American culture where like the elders are people that we should be taking care of, like he still kind of maintains this ideology that he should be leading the home. We're fine, and like we are texting and everything is okay, but to me that was like a very real, like a moment of realization, A, that he is someone that I turn to in moments of crisis, and B, that he kind of still holds that mentality with the family.
I would react very emotionally to that statement, because it's really rare to hear a parent come off and not apologize, but like acknowledge what they've done, whether it's a mistake or not. I see why you and Patty are so protective too, because I feel like you also feel like the head of the household, because you're very similar to your dad, right?
Yeah, it's a very good observation. I think it's a little bit of like eldest child thing. I think you generally just almost regardless of culture, at times you feel kind of like more responsible for the whole.
I guess for me it's like after he said that, like was it more like, oh, after he said that I realized my dad is someone that I go to for advice, or before that you already knew that?
I kind of was already sensing it, and maybe that story was more like it was to showcase for me a really touching moment, but also it was like one of those things where it was revealing to me that he was starting to feel his emotions too, right? So us being kind of these people that process very pragmatically, and he's starting to to feel it. And my dad and I have actually had a lot of conversations that happen like this, where it starts out very logical, and we're like trying to make sure each other like understands or informs something, and then suddenly like our voices are getting elevated, and then suddenly we're like kind of in a heated argument, and then we realize that like it is nothing to do about the thing we're actually talking about. It's just because we're feeling anxious, and we're like kind of it's coming out that way. I mean, that wasn't an explanation of that situation, but I think it was a reflection of like personality types, and then for me also like another understanding of the gravity of the situation when someone that you really rely on in terms of like their judgment is starting to feel like uncertain about a situation, right?
Is that why you said like only within the past 24 hours did you actually start feeling like the severity of it after that phone call with your dad then? Yeah. I think it was with my dad, with my sister, and then with my friend. And then also I think having the governor make that official order statement. And I know that there's probably going to be some leeway and flexibility in how it's actually implemented or how people will practice it. But I was just like reading on the website the directives, and like it literally, I was like, oh my God, like you're like not supposed to leave your home. And the heaviness of that hit me. Yeah. And I think also his closing statement, he deliberately addressed the xenophobia and the racism that's been happening in California. Like that was how he ended his speech. And to me, even though we're seeing it on social media and all these things, like I said, I'm just not as plugged in that way. And I think that hearing a person of like
official power
in that way, and in a more traditional like media format address it, made it just so real to me.
It's definitely not something to take lightly. Yeah.
Yeah. To my mind, it's also like if it's making its way up to him to address, that means that it's not just that like a couple of cases, but it's like enough cases of things happening that it's really not, that it needs to be addressed. Right.
Yeah. Are your parents aware of that too? Like, are you making sure that they are aware of it too?
Yeah. I think the thing is like my parent, like in Orange County, I think oftentimes my dynamic with them growing up has been they're pretty aware of like the unspoken racism, I guess. I think because my mom's also quite sensitive to it, and so I've almost kind of playing the way to react to that for me has always been kind of like trying to calm them out, like you shouldn't, like that's being a little paranoid, it's okay, you know. And so I think they already err on kind of being very, very cautious, but also they're in a place in Orange County where I feel like it's pretty safe, and my sister's also close by. I don't know that any like intense hate crimes are happening in their neighborhood, so I think that's okay, but I know that they're also ultra aware, and that most likely they're watching the news from all ends and hearing the stories.
Have you ladies gotten like bored yet? I feel like I have not gotten bored, and I keep hearing a lot of people saying like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, I'm stuck at home and I'm so bored. I feel like there's so much that you can finally do, right?
I don't feel bored at all, to be honest. I feel like there's not enough time for me to do the things I want to do. Like, even like doing things for ABG, I'm like, I thought it would take me an hour to do. It took me like 3 hours to do. I'm like, oh wait, like, so naturally, like my day-to-day has been like, by the time it's dinner time, I'm like, wait, it's already dinner? Like, there's so many things I want to do that I haven't got to do yet.
Yeah. I totally agree. I feel like I make like a to-do list and yeah, things are taking longer than expected. Also because just like if you want to do personal errands, that's taking longer than expected now as well, right? Just because systems are changing. So I definitely have not gotten bored. I think I've probably more experienced just like, I feel like the day passes and I'm like, I was just staring at my computer screen. Like, what was I doing? So it's more kind of being aware that like, hey, I need to, because now there's no reason to break up your day to have to like, you know, meet other people for lunch or like to go and take that yoga class or whatever it is. So I have to like implement time to like start a new activity or move from the place that I'm sitting.
I think what it also kind of maybe says to us is that I feel like if you're bored, that means you're not really having an intention behind what you're doing. But if you're like intentionally trying to like watch Netflix to like catch up on, to be part of like social conversation and all of that, it's like there's an intention behind it. So it doesn't mean that you're just like mindlessly doing these things. And I think that's when it leads to boredom. But even like, I don't know, like cleaning out your closet or journaling or organizing your cabinets, deep cleaning your kitchen. Like these are all things that take so much time. I'm just like, these are things that personally I want to do. And I'm just like, oh, haven't found the time to do it yet. And people are like, I'm bored. I'm like, come over here, clean my kitchen.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good tip. It means that like whatever activity you're doing, just do it with intention, right? Like, because sometimes I think people might feel guilty. They're like, oh my God, I just binged a season of this on Netflix. Well, but did you do it for a reason, right? And if there's a reason to it, then yeah, you don't have to feel bad about it, I guess.
Yeah, like for me, I totally am spending more time reading. I'm so happy to like have time to read. And I actually signed up for Duolingo. So I'm trying to learn a different language.
Oh. What language are you learning? Wait, let me guess. Korean?
Yeah.
K-dramas.
No, seriously. I think naturally I consume so much like Korean content. It makes sense for me just to learn Korean. So yeah, there are some days I'm just like, I want to spend more time learning Korean, but I'm like, then I'm doing these other things. So I think this is a great chance for you guys to like find an activity you guys always wanted to do and just spend some time doing that.
I agree. Yeah. And I think along the same lines, even though all of this is incredibly scary, all of us are anxious about it, we don't know when it's going to end, there is some positive that we can see coming from it. And personally, just taking the time to do the things at the bottom of our checklist that has always been there in our like reminders on our iPhones that we just like have never crossed out. This is like finally the chance to get to do that. What other positive things are you ladies noticing?
See, I don't know if this is a positive thing, Janet. Let me know if you have this thought too, but I recently changed my dating location to San Francisco just to see what's out there. And part of me is like, you know, I'm someone that doesn't like to actually go out all the time to meet someone because I'm just lazy and I like prefer to be by myself. And part of me is like, would I be open to like a FaceTime date?
I've had the opposite experience in LA, or maybe just because I personally have I considered like deleting my apps just because at this point I'm like, yeah, we're barely talking. We're not going to meet up. But you make a good point. Maybe this is a good time to move it to a virtual in-person meeting. Which is something I was trying to implement even before this, right? To instead of moving straight to an in-person, to have some in between like phone call or a FaceTime. Yeah. So this might be a good time to do that. I don't know. Have you tried it yet, Mel?
No. So I just thought about this because it's so funny. So I feel like with Helen and Phil, like, you know, with social distancing and they live together, like they're going to spending more time together. And then I thought about like, it's like a pro and con. Like you hear like news articles saying like people are getting divorces in China because like they've been locked down together. But at the same time, for couples who don't get to spend enough time together, it's really nice to get this time. And part of me is wondering, like, Love is Blind, like from the show, like, will this actually bring about better quality relationships versus just like meeting in person and drinking, you know? And funny story, maybe it's not that funny, but so I was on Instagram because everyone's on social media nowadays, and I reacted to someone's Instagram story, thinking that it was our friend Eric. I like sent heart emoji eyes to like this dinner, and I was like, oh, that's so good. Little did I know, I accidentally sent it to my ex that I dated in college, and I was like, no, like, it was not Eric, and I was like, crap, like, and then he started to have this conversation with me, and I could tell he wants to keep talking, and I'm just like, oh, no, like, I don't want to build a relationship with you anymore, like, that's definitely not what it is. Like, it just kind of, like, this awkward situation that came about because, like, slip of my finger, social distancing, and, like, just thinking about dating in general, I'm like, oh, awkward scenario that came out of this.
Does your ex listen to ABG?
I don't know, and if he does, I am so sorry, but I don't. You're great. I just don't see you that way.
Ouch.
And, like,
COVID and Mel turning you down.
No, it just, you know, like, I don't know.
It's okay. It was an honest mistake. How are you gonna end that conversation? Unless, I mean, he's gonna hear it on here if he listens. But how are you gonna end it via your DM?
See, it's hard because I feel like, you know, back when you used to work and go to like the office, your excuse is like, I'm sorry, I got really busy. I didn't check my phone. That's a bullshit response now because everyone's on their phone. So I'm just kind of like, I'll just leave it unread.
Yeah, I saw this like meme or something about how people are like, usually you are able to end a phone call or like a video chat with like, hey, I gotta run. And they're like, now I caught myself saying that and I was like, oh shit, I have nowhere to run to. Yeah. I can't use that excuse anymore.
No, you're right.
This is funny. This is funny stuff.
No.
Damn, Mel, you're in a pickle.
Yeah. Well, it's also funny, speaking of memes, one that actually like that came up on my Instagram or I was on Twitter. Someone goes, living with your spouse, and you hear like their work voice. It's like, damn, I didn't know you said, let's circle back.
Yeah.
Like, who's this man I'm talking to?
Yeah.
That was so funny.
Actually, Philip and I did get into an argument, and I think it's fun to share this stuff. But we got into an argument because, you know how like we're like constantly just glued to our phones and like on Twitter, listening to all the news, our friends texting us, our parents texting us through WeChat and all this stuff. So like we're constantly on our phones. And there was this moment where Philip was just like, okay, let's get off our phones. And I had not reached the top of my Twitter feed yet. So I was like, no, I'm not ready to yet. And then he got like so mad at me. And I was just like, what the heck? We've been doing this for hours. And all of a sudden you decide, like when you decide that you want to, you know, get off your phone, then I have to. And we got into like an argument that night, went to sleep like annoyed at each other. And then the next day it happened again, where he said, okay, we need to get off our phones. Cause like sometimes you just like wake up from your phone and you're like, shit, we need to stop doing this. We need to stop scrolling and feeding us all of this like negative news. So he was doing that again, and I just started laughing because I was like, bro, this is something that you do. Stop telling me what to do on your timeline because I need like another 10 minutes. And it became like a funny thing that now I and he realizes that it's something that he does, so now we can like laugh about it. But it's like, Mel, you were saying, you're building more like quality relationships by seeing things that maybe during normal quote unquote times doesn't happen as often. So it's like, it's interesting.
Yeah. It's funny. I like how you're like, bruh, you do the same thing.
Dude, let me scroll.
That pretty much explains our current state of, you know, being on lockdown. Helen and Phil fighting about screen time and saying bruh.
Actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Look on your phones. Let me know what your screen time says. Your average daily screen time this week. Who wants to go first? I'm pretty embarrassed by mine. I'll say it. Ready? 7 hours and 16 minutes. Oh.
Mine's pretty close-ish. Yeah, and it's down from last week. So last week was even higher.
Is it?
My daily average is 6 hours and 27 minutes.
Oh shit.
Okay.
Dude, okay, we're on a Zoom right now and Mel's face is like,
you know why? I'm shocked because I'm the one that I work in social media, so you assume that I'd be on it the most. But you two. Wow. Just kidding.
You scold us.
My daily average is 5 hours and 15 minutes and has been 40% down from last week. But here's my theory. You know why? Because I'm surrounded by my friends, so I'm hanging out with them more than being on my phone.
That's a good point.
So, you know, in your defense for you two, because,
that
you know,
sense.
you have less people in your house. Janet has one. Helen has Phil. It just, you know, makes sense.
Anyway, that's just a fun thing to look at, I guess, for all of you listeners out there too. Check your screen time. Check how much time you're spending scrolling on your phone. Apparently I'm scrolling a lot. So maybe Phil has a right to tell me to stop.
You know, it's also really funny that I was really enjoying people have been doing is so we posted on like our Instagram, like, this is our like working from home attire. Literally it's just all of us in like PJs and like a bun. And people have been tagging us, sharing their like work from home outfits, and it's been really entertaining for me to see. At the SF house, we usually like work during the day, and then we share meals together, and we rotate cooking. And at night, we always like binge watch shows for like 3 hours. And as we were binge watching, all of us were shopping, and I was like, I realized the stuff I'm trying to purchase now, they're all loungewear. Like, oh, look at that like cute little like sweater outfit, or look at that stretchy pant. I'm like, what am I doing now? Like, it's very different than how my behavior was like before.
I know. I feel like just this past year, I've definitely transitioned from like tighter clothing to just like comfortable clothing. Something I could just like sleep in and walk in athleisure. I mean, athleisure market has like picked up like crazy.
I've actually I tried last night for the first time doing at-home yoga. So Helen and I were going to classes pretty regularly before, but then they shut down the studio. And I don't know, Helen, if you got the email, but they have a little link that you can sign in, and they have like a couple of like 30-minute or 1-hour videos. And some of the...
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, so you should, like they have... it's not the same because you're not in a heated room, but they'll do like the same routine, and they have ones that are focused more on like stretching and expansion, and others that are more like maybe arm focused, and even some of the like the weight ones. That was my fun little activity last night, was getting into a headstand, which I actually learned is helpful for boosting your mood, because it's not just a headstand, but if you go into any type of inversion, I don't know if this is good advice, but maybe if you just like lay on your bed and put your head over your bed and the blood rushes, but
you're gonna break someone's neck.
I'm just saying, if you don't want to get into like a headstander, but either way, an inversion, basically it increases the flow of blood to your brain, and then that stimulates the production of like serotonin, some of those hormones that are actually good for balancing your mood. So if you get antsy, maybe just go against the wall and use the wall to assist you, and go upside down for like a little bit. Don't go for too long and then get like lightheaded, but that when you come back up, you'll feel a little bit more like better.
Oh, interesting.
And then send us your photos of you doing that.
Yeah, send
Please.
us photos of your version of an inversion.
Oh, version of inversion. I kind of like that. Okay, so, obviously we talked about like the little things we're doing to like keep ourselves busy. And obviously all three of us are not bored, it sounds like. Are there any ways you guys are protecting yourselves? Like, obviously, we have to go to the grocery store. Janet is keeping a very fair distance from Helen and dropping things off in a paper bag, it looks like. But anything else you guys are doing? Like, are you guys, like, vacuuming more, or are you using disinfectant wipes?
I mean, I think all of us are, like, on the hand sanitizer and Clorox wipe game. Social distancing, very important. And then something that I noticed I think might be a good maybe tip for people. Like, our phones are so dirty.
Yes.
Yeah. Something that I had done even prior to this is like after I come out of the shower, in the shower I use face wash. And then after I come out of the shower, I take a cotton pad and I use toner. So I use the Sun and Park toner. And I wipe off like the remainder of my makeup on one side of the cotton pad, but I'll use the other side to wipe off my phone. And it's just like habit that I do that, because there's some like crazy good cleansing properties in toner if it takes off like the rest of your makeup. So I use that to clean the other side of my phone. I know we're all trying to like sanitize and make sure that we're Cloroxing everything, but sometimes we forget about our phone. And that's just like a good moment, especially if you bring your phone into bed, that your phone is also clean with you as it comes into bed.
That's a great point. Yeah. And I'm pretty intensely social distancing right now, and like I leave my apartment maybe like once a day. And the one time that I will do that, whenever I come home, I've now started disinfecting my phone. But I've also started, I don't know if this is helpful, but I will have like an outfit that I wear to go outside, and then an outfit that I have when I'm in my home, and then I change again if I'm going to go to bed. So it's just kind of like keeping up with the hygiene more frequently. I also did a deep cleaning of my apartment. I think it's helpful to like pass the time, but also just to like a good opportunity to keep, it's like a responsibility to your own personal health. We also know that there's a lot of conflicting information going around, and for us, it's been helpful to check out the cdc.gov. I don't know for you ladies if there's other resources that you've seen. I think most of the like health precaution information is pretty standard. But if you are interested, you can go to cdc.gov, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and they have a specific section on COVID-19, how to prepare, how it spreads, how to protect yourself.
Also, the WHO, World Health Organization, has a lot of good information too. And reliable. And I think just one other thing, like a lot of people have been hoarding just like hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes, but like soap also does the deed of killing the virus, because coronavirus is encased in basically like a layer of fat, like lipids. And so the soap breaks down that fat, and all you got to do is use some soap, maybe bring some with you if you are down on sanitizer and afraid that you can't get any. Hoard mentality is so crazy.
Yeah, and it's actually more effective than hand sanitizer, right, to use soap and water. And just, is it like 20 seconds that they say? So you sing like happy birthday or something like that.
Twice.
Happy birthday twice. Yeah, will be the right amount of time. Also, in all of this, like planning of like, you're making sure that you have enough groceries and food. I'm definitely going to the grocery store and trying to cook more. But another great thing that's been helping to supplement are like having subscription food services. Daily Harvest is one that has these really great grain bowls. They're very hearty. Their flavors are super interesting. They have like Asian influenced cuisine, Indian, all different types of variety. And if you would like, you can use the code ABG and you will get $25 off on your first box.
So thank you everyone for joining in on this off-season episode. We thought it was really important to just address what was going on out there in the world today. And we also just wanted to thank the healthcare workers, the people working at grocery stores, pharmacies, airlines, ride-sharing cars, and all the other necessary services that are being provided during this time. I think we often take these roles for granted, but right now you are all keeping us sane out there and keeping us together. And I think it's important to also note that the virus doesn't care about race, religion, sexual orientation, rich or poor, immigration status. Only we tend to care about that. So I think it's a time for us to be humbled again, that we are all human. Let's stop the senseless violence and prejudice against people of Asian descent. Random acts of violence and hate towards Asians is cowardly and inexcusable.
And to all of our listeners and everyone out there who is social distancing, we hope you are taking care of yourselves and engaging in daily contact with others through video chats and phone calls. And if you need someone to talk to, ABG has partnered with BetterHelp, the world's largest online counseling platform. They are also one of the more affordable options out there. And right now they're offering our listeners 10% off the first month. Just go to betterhelp.com/ABG. That's BetterHelp.com/ABG.
Yes, and as you take care of yourself, we hope you guys think about the others around us in our community. Small businesses are suffering right now, so if you guys have the option, please order to go. They are needing us more than ever right now. Again, thank you so much for tuning into this special episode of ABG. You can find us on Spotify and iTunes for our full 58 episodes to keep you guys company during this time.
And Asian Boss Girl is now brought to you by Anchor.fm. If you'd like, you can now support us on a monthly basis. Just go to Anchor.fm/ABG-Asian Boss Girl, and you can select a monthly donation option. The details will be in our show notes. You can also find us on social media. Our handle is Asian Boss Girl, and we are currently trying out a few new things on Instagram. We're going to be doing more weekly lives and other activities, so please continue to interact with us there.
We are grateful to be alive and healthy, and together we can beat this thing and flatten the curve. Be safe, be healthy, and let's be kind to each other. Thanks, everyone.
Bye!